Hello and welcome to the FootballCo Business Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Manby, and today I'm talking to Erin Williams, Sport Engagement Manager for Stonewall. Erin is one of the many people behind the annual Rainbow Laces campaign, the movement focused on creating an environment in sport where anyone who identifies as LGBTQ+ can feel comfortable and free of fear from abuse. On the show, we'll discuss this year's campaign and how Stonewall aims to encourage people to be not just silent supporters, but also active participatory allies in the initiative. Erin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alex, and thank you very much for having me today. It's great to be here.
So for those who might not be aware of Rainbow Laces, perhaps listening outside of the UK, can you give us a little background on the campaign and what its goals are?
Yep, absolutely. So Rainbow Laces is aimed at improving inclusion for LGBTQ+ people in sport. It started off as a football campaign, but now it's really gone into, taken its own wheels and gone into loads of other sports as people make it their own. It's there to combat and to bring awareness of the fact that we know that a lot of LGBTQ+ people are not, don't feel accepted in sport. We know that 4 in 10 people don't feel comfortable going to games, and we know that in Europe, 33% of people aren't even out to people in their sporting environments. So we're here to really ensure that what we're doing and how we can how we're running our sports programs actually does what we need it to do, in terms of saying everybody should be able to play sport, everybody should be able to watch sport, and we should all be able to succeed in sport.
Things are changing a little bit this year with the tagline "Lace Up and Speak Up." That's more of a call to action than in previous years, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, Rainbow Laces has been running for a few years now, and it's been a great sign of visibility. But visibility doesn't really mean much without action behind it. And we've now got to a point where we've moved beyond people just needing to show a little small token to show support. It's actually saying, well, okay, well, we know we have the support, so what are we actually doing to make the change? And the really simple way to do this, and one of the most effective ways, is to speak up. So we're focusing on lacing up, still show that visibility, but also speak up this year and start the conversation around how we can identify what the barriers are for LGBTQ+ people in sport, how we can tear them down, and what the actual situation is where people who are not LGBTQ+, so allies is what we call them, who stand up for us, what actually needs to be done. And the speaking up really raises a bit more of a collective action around that.
In the wake of the George Floyd killing, there was much discussion about the difference between an individual being not racist versus anti-racist. Do you see a parallel with Lace Up and Speak Up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we speak a lot about, what maybe passive negative behavior is. So active negative behavior is somebody actively using, homophobic, biphobic, transphobic language, racist language, sexist language. But there's so many people who are more passive and maybe just don't challenge it, don't call it out. And we know that's really common in locker room situations, or, in the terraces in football, where, somebody might start a chant or a song and nobody's saying, actually, that's not okay, or nobody's reporting it, or just calling it in with your mates in the locker room. So that's where we're starting to see a lot of massive allies coming out and saying it's not enough to just say that I support people. It's being able to say, actually, I'm going to challenge the negative behavior, and I'm going to really embrace that difference and bring it forward. So yeah, there are parallels for sure.
I'm keen to understand a bit more about the role that football plays in that and who some of these allies are, but just remaining for a second on the overall objectives of Rainbow Laces. One of the hardest things for any marketeer is to change or to instigate widespread societal behavior change, but that's exactly what Rainbow Laces is trying to do. How do you go about a big, bold objective like that, and what are the key messages you use?
Yeah, I think it's really important to note that, it's a process, and we're not looking for instantaneous, surprise change. we have the campaign which runs this time in December and November and December every year. But I have a full time job. You've 365. And so does my whole team, working behind the scenes, working with groups to make sure that this is a ongoing conversation. So we do that, through education, through policy changes, through workshops, through people getting really to understand, what it is about sport that we love and what skills are we building up when we play and when we support each other, and what is so integral to sporting culture anyway. It is things like respect and courage and having your back and having my back, and all of those things tie really well into it shouldn't just happen on the pitch. It should happen, in terms of team cohesiveness. And we know that people play better when they're able to be themselves. So, why are we putting up barriers that mean that people can't play very well? And that's something that we go all year round. And then the campaign is mainly a way to celebrate that and to raise a bit more awareness, to get people who maybe wouldn't otherwise engage with LGBTQ plus issues to understand that this is actually something that is really relevant in football, that, very clearly with a lot of, and I know we'll speak about it soon, the allies speaking up within the men's game, they're bringing it up themselves. They're talking about it. It's an issue close to people's heart, and galvanizing all of that. That wasn't the case 5-6 years ago, but as we trickle through things, and then as people get more and more aware, through things like, we do some incredible work with the Premier League and the community foundations and the player care teams, and it's really getting in there and embedding it, and then watching that sort of explode outwards. So yeah, it's it's a long process, it's a long journey, and I think the whole idea is that there's always going to be new things to talk about, but as we go through, it's raising that awareness and then taking that, building that action change.
You talk about it being a long process. It's been 6 years, I believe, since Rainbow Laces was launched. Is it working? Do you see progress?
Yeah, I think so. I really do think so. I know just for myself with my own teammates, 6 years ago, I put the laces in and no one had any idea what they meant. I had teammates who were allies who didn't want to wear the laces because they didn't want to be, perceived as being LGBT. And now it's, you have Jordan Henderson who won't take him out of his boots, and people actually, outwardly going out there and saying, not only do I have these in, but I know why I have them in, and I want to start the conversation and really understand where we're going with it. So yeah, I do think it's working, and this idea that it's, the Premier League clubs have gotten behind it every year. We see university teams in schools and things like that. And, just to keep in mind with Section 28, which outlawed school teachers from talking about LGBTQ plus identities, it wasn't repealed very long ago. And, the fact that they're doing something now where every school will have Rainbow Laces Day, that would have been illegal when I was in school. So the fact that it's not just got to a point where it's not just illegal now, it's actually really celebrated, and kids are able to go into their PE classes and say, this is a token of inclusion, and now we're going to have a conversation about it. It pops up in so many different ways. So, we definitely have a long way to go, and I don't think it's going to be an end to Rainbow Laces anytime soon, but it is working, and now it's just about moving that forward a bit.
You talk about a long way to go, you talk about moving forward. What are the big obstacles in the way now that you've got the Premier League on side, the clubs are adopting it, many players are allies? What do you see as your biggest obstacles now?
I think a massive part of it is understanding the full spectrum of what barriers to LGBT inclusion are and look like, and the idea that sport doesn't exist in a vacuum. So there's still a lot of issues going on in daily society. The transphobia happening all throughout the world. In the UK is preventing people from being able to even think that football could be a place for them. All of that area is a big thing. And I do think there's also the challenge with changing fan behaviors and changing that sort of pack mentality that sometimes happens, and we see it with singing. And I think it's so important that, you know, the clubs have been really firm that, you know, that sort of I don't even want to call it support, but that sort of vocal singing is not appropriate at all, and it's harmful if anything. But we really need to get people on that side of the message. So I think it's twofold. It's what's going on in culture as a whole, you know, in sport not existing in that vacuum, and then it's maybe people who are a bit more resistant or get involved in that pack mentality and perpetuate some negative thoughts.
Rainbow Laces covers the full LGBTQ plus spectrum. I imagine it's safe to assume that some elements of that spectrum are further advanced in this journey that you talk about than others. The thing that springs to my mind is transgender rights in the sport, which have been in the news a lot this year, notably with the case of Laurel Hubbard, the New Zealand weightlifter who competed at the Tokyo Olympics. I understand you'll treat this all under the same equality opportunity for all, but do you have to deal with certain elements in a different way?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, I think with trans inclusion in sport, you know, everybody deserves to have the benefits of sport, and, you know, especially trans people who are experiencing, you know, awful situations from, you know, barriers to medical care and transphobia in the media, and, you know, a lot of the things that are happening at the moment, and, you know, family rejection. Sport is an outlet for everyone, and people who need it most should, you know, be on the top of the list to be able to access it. Unfortunately, for a lot of trans people, that's not the case. There's still a lot of, you know, on the pitch, there's stereotypes and prejudices, and then there's a lot of lack of awareness that actually people can still play. There's you know, policies there that are inclusive, and football is doing very well at that and moving in a really good direction from coming from a point of inclusion. I just think it's really important. I mean, we talk about the Olympics this summer. I mean, all of the attention was on Laurel Hubbard, but actually in terms of the, we had our first openly trans Olympian to actually play was Quinn from Canada, the footballer, and, you know, they'd made their debut in the Olympics before Laurel did. So Quinn got there first, and then Quinn won a gold medal, but there was no conversation about what kind of threat would Quinn be. So, and actually there's quite a lot of trans misogyny, so sort of transphobia against trans women, that is all wrapped up in this that we need to really break away from. So I think with trans inclusion in sport, we really want to celebrate you know, the incredible things that trans athletes are doing, and we want to keep opening up the door for that to be moving forward.
So does Stonewall and Rainbow Laces have specific campaigns, specific activations, content creation campaigns which take into account trans rights?
100%. I mean, the whole campaign is completely inclusive, and when we speak for LGBTQ plus inclusion, you know, there is no LGB without the T. So absolutely everything is embedded. So the work we do year round, we do specific, you know, workshops on how to be a good ally to trans people. We encourage, and we've had some incredible trans footballers step up this year and get involved and speak out and tell their story. Absolutely, it's a central part of what we do.
I'm keen to talk about football and the importance of the sport to the Rainbow Laces campaign compared to other sports.
Yep.
Obviously, it's the global game, it's the UK's game, it's the most popular sport in most countries around the world. Does it carry more weight because of that?
I think it does. I mean, I think that's why it's so incredible that football and, you know, the Premier League in particular have recognized that platform and this position they're in. You know, you can't escape football, and I mean, I love it. I've played for many years, and I love the sport, and so I feel like, to an extent, I'm a little bit biased because a lot of my life is around football. But I do think that it's in a position where it has a big platform. The players have a huge platform. There is a lot of money behind it, and for better or for worse, that being pumped in has actually opened the door for not only improvement in football, but also we're able to take a lot of particularly like the player care models or some community engagement models that we've developed within the Premier League and with the clubs. And now that's rolling out to sports that are less well funded, and reaching more and more and more people. But that wouldn't have, we wouldn't have it. That wouldn't exist. There wouldn't be access to it without the brilliant investment of the Premier League as a team pride partner. So, and we're the only people in the world doing that. It doesn't exist elsewhere. So, in the world, and we're now able to take that and bring it globally and sort of spread that message around. And that's some exciting projects coming up. So I think it's really good that football not only has that voice, but is using it well and is really mobilizing to say, we have this resource, we have this platform. A lot of footballers are also in a safe, if they're not LGBT, and I know, at the moment there's no out Premier League men's player. Allies do have a safer position to be able to speak out because they're not in direct threat of a lot of the dangers that LGBTQ plus people are in. So, where it might not be safe for me to speak up, maybe in an area, you turn around and you see people like Jordan Henderson or Conor, Coady, and having these conversations and saying them really clearly, and you say, right, well, you've got the platform, and you have the safety, and you've spoken up, and that's what Rainbow Laces is about this year. It's recognizing that and then speaking up.
It does feel like an impressive reaction. I think with certain other sports, it feels like maybe because they're lower profile, there's easier access for an organisation like Stonewall to talk to those, even at the top of their game, the top rugby players or the top tennis players, or maybe even lower profile sports than that. And I think football sometimes has been a little bit reticent to throw itself into it and has waited sometimes when maybe you would expect it to lead. But it sounds like that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, football has been great. They're very clear from the beginning. It was hold your hands up, say, we need help, please. We don't know what should we be doing. And I think in some other sports, like, not to make a massive comparison at all, but they either don't have the resources to be able to do that, or they might be getting it really well in some areas, but particularly or maybe around women's sport or trans inclusion, it's not really going well. So there can be a little bit of issues being conflated around, but football has covered the whole spectrum of the game. We do a lot of work within the WSL as well, so it's it is actually, I absolutely love working with football, and I don't want to say I'm biased, but I am a little bit.
You mentioned that there's no openly gay male footballer in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. Until very recently, there was no openly gay male footballer in any top flight league around the world. That's changed now with Josh Cavallo, the 22-year-old Australian, coming out recently and announcing that he's a gay man. How big was that announcement? How important was it for the LGBTQ plus campaign?
I mean, huge. And I mean, firstly, to give him all the credit and the bravery to be able to do that and the courage. I think, there's something about coming out where most of us who have to go through it, I know I came out to myself at about 16. I didn't tell anyone else until I was 20, and I didn't have to make a public announcement about it. What was going through Josh's mind when he first realized, and then when he told his family, and then the long process, it's long, but all as you're going through it, you're building up some skills that are, fantastic to have in sport, like courage and resilience and self-awareness and, all of these things that are useful on the pitch. So part of it is, he was really clear about this, that he was getting a bit exhausted to try to shield things, and he wanted to be his best self in the game and bring all those skills that he had fully and openly to playing. And I think by doing that, by coming out and by saying exactly what he said about, I'm tired of being exhausted, I think it really adds weight to this idea that we really do need to create environments where people feel comfortable to come out, because it's not helping anybody, to sit there in the closet and to feel like you can't be open and honest. to the people who are closest to you, to your family, who are your teammates. You get so close to people, and to have to hide something constantly is not great. So on that side of it, I hope it sent that message to people, and especially with the result that the reaction he got from around the football world, which was just pure respect, especially from players and coaches. And yeah, I think in terms of the visibility for LGBTQ plus people, seeing people succeed and doing the things that you love to do, and who are respected because of doing the things that you love to do, it adds another dimension to be able to, a young kid turning around today and being like, hey, I can be gay and I can be a professional footballer because look, someone's done it, it's possible. And they can turn around to their parents and say, hey, it is possible. Don't worry about me. And all of these things that people have to deal with. The fact that we have examples that you can still succeed because of your identity, not just in spite of it, is huge. So yeah, massive props to Josh.
Did that reaction that you mentioned there surprise you? It was an overwhelming outpouring of support, and it felt like the reaction amplified the announcement itself, and it became a bigger thing because of it. And from my personal point of view, it doesn't surprise me that people would support him, but the level of support, the number of people, the highest profile players and teams and federations in the world, all acknowledging that this was a big moment, I thought in itself was a big moment.
Yeah, I don't think it surprised me either. Especially with what what a lot of the footballers were doing, for example, over the summer at Euros, and the way that they get involved in the campaign in Rainbow Laces, it didn't surprise me because I know that there is that engagement. I was also, I think, looking at some of the fan engagement, I didn't really see very many messages of that were negative. And I think there's just this idea of, ooh, we're moving forward. This is great. Like the work that we're putting in is paying off. People feel accepted. And I think that's, that's the crux of what, especially high profile players and, elite sports people, you want people to feel like they could be on your team. You want to feel like you have that camaraderie and that support. It's a big part of, football as a team sport. So to be able to sort of say, oh, actually we are going in the right direction where people are feeling more and more like they can perform their best by being themselves. And yeah, I think that's only going to be a positive. So yeah, it wasn't surprising, but it was a bit of a relief to see all that.
I saw Cavallo came out and said that he hopes that in the near future it won't even be a piece of news when a male footballer comes out as openly gay.
Yeah.
It feels like women's sport is possibly there already. There is a reasonably high number of openly gay women's players. Does that mean you have a different set of tactics when talking about women's sport?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think there's still issues around coming out for a lot of women's athletes. And we could sit here and talk all day, and I have very strong feelings about this because it was my experience myself. But a lot of the ties in together between sexism and misogyny and homophobia and biphobia and transphobia, it's all directly related. So the idea that a lot of young girls are sort of turned away from sport because, oh, I don't want to be the lesbian, and then they realize that, oh my God, I might be LGBTQ plus. I don't want to conform to the stereotype. I don't want to come out. And I know that's still a barrier for a lot of people. And I coach a lot of young players at the moment. And I know that is still something that they talk about. And that was my experience 20 years ago. So it is all wrapped up, and there's still that reticence. But the conversations that we have and we're able to have within women's football are a little bit moved beyond. And I think it's got to a point where, within the communities it's accepted, but now it's like, actually, now we have to look at the realities and the challenges that people might face. So we did something incredible, like one of my favorite things, a program with some of the England coaches a few years ago, where we're saying, okay, well, what is an actual challenge what is a real challenge related to identity that's come up? It's not that people are hurling homophobic abuse at the players. It's the fact that we've got, a player who is in a relationship with a person on the other team and you're playing in the World Cup. How do you manage that? Or, what we had with Kate and Helen Richardson-Walsh. They're playing in an Olympics together. One of them gets hurt. How do you motivate the other one to keep playing? And when actually, usually you'd have your partner go to the hospital with you. But no, Kate got hurt. Helen has to keep going in an Olympic game. And these are issues not caused by LGBTQ plus identities, but that we're aware of now. And because we're in a position where we can actually say, hey, this is the reality and this is awesome, that people can live their lives. Now we can turn around and say, well, now how can we build on this? How can we acknowledge that these are new complications? It's the beauty of sport that we now have to just face and deal with. And the reception is overwhelmingly positive. But I do think that sort of the stereotypes and the idea that, the worst thing in the world you could possibly be in school is like, a lesbian who plays sport, that still exists. And that's still a challenge we have to face in women's sport. And it still does affect, professional players.
It does feel like the conversation is just more present than it used to be in women's sport, but also in men's sport. It feels like it's no longer something that people necessarily have to tiptoe around. It's something that is part of the narrative, particularly at this time of the year. And in fact, I wanted to ask you about that because do you see it as potentially an issue that Rainbow Laces now has such a groundswell of opinion and positivity around it that people look forward to it? They know it's part of the football calendar every November, December. Rainbow Laces are going to be worn, Rainbow Laces are going to be talked about. But is it potentially an issue that because it's such a big thing at this time of year, it then sort of loses visibility for the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in my I don't think that's the case actually at all. And part of it is because my busiest time of year is February and March, and so I'm sitting here thinking that this is the quiet time. And part of it is because people have the laces and the boots, and then we go in and it's LGBTQ as History Month, and then in terms of when people are actually playing sport, you have club finals moving up in March, or varsities, or Bucks university season accumulating, and that kind of goes all year round. And then we see with other sports, cricket always do massive for Rainbow Laces in July, Pride Month in June. Like it's an ongoing conversation, and I think there's always a way for people to pull up this idea of actually this month suits our calendar and we're going to shout about it. The idea that football uses this time of year, professional football uses this time of year to really go for it is because that's what works. That's what works for the Premier League and the EFL and the WSL. But then that sort of conversation is outgoing and ongoing. And I think, the LGBTQ plus lives, we don't just exist in these 2 months. We're constantly playing sport all year round. So we see often people using this as a starting point of saying, actually, we're going to use Rainbow Laces to sit down and have a meeting and talk about how our club policies can change. And then they'll spend the next 6 months changing them. And then you really start to see, things launch and new conversations happening in the summertime. So it's not just about everybody puts it on now and then you take it off and leave it. And that's the big part behind the campaign, especially, is that speak up side of, okay, we're speaking up, but part of that is having the conversations to identify what the barriers are. And then the next step is to take them down. And I think that's a big part and the big goal of the campaign, which is to, get people to think about it, get people to identify what else needs to be done, and then take the rest of the year to do that action. And then this time next year, we can sit back and say, look how far we've come. Now what next? And then, go even further.
I think Black Lives Matter threw up questions around the positive impact or otherwise of allyship, and particularly performative allyship. Yeah. Some people would say, well, any visibility is good visibility and any support is good support. And others said, actually, performative allyship really doesn't achieve anything because, are people genuinely supporting this cause, or is it to get a couple of likes on their Instagram page? Yeah. Do you see any parallels with that with Rainbow Laces, or do you think any positive endorsement is good?
I do see parallels. I mean, I think with there's pink washing, which is basically the term for when all the brands, sell us pride stuff and put rainbows on everything, and then take our money and don't don't donate to charities, or don't do anything with that. So yeah, that is a massive problem. But I don't see that with rainbow laces. I think with what's happening is, because I know it, because it's my job, all year round, and our whole team's job, and you see the work that's happening with the clubs, is that when a club turns their logo rainbow, it's happening this time of year because it's around the campaign. But I know that they're doing the work behind the scenes, and they really are. So I don't see that as performative allyship. What would not be okay if somebody had laces in and then started, spouting something negative, and I do have no instances of that happening. But fortunately, what we've seen is, people are learning. So that person would then be in really the minority of people who, they have, who are saying and thinking negative things, and then they have people calling them in and calling them out and sort of challenging and saying, we're learning from this, we're learning together, and we're a team, and that culture is just not acceptable here. So yeah,
it's clearly about reaching as many people as possible in all walks of life via multiple sports.
Mm-hmm.
But have you got any specific cases of true allyship? Any clubs or players who really have gone beyond, and maybe it's not performative allyship, but beyond gestures, and really become true allies to the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in football, I'll point out Liverpool as a massive one. I know with what Jordan Henderson was doing last year, with reaching out on Twitter and showing his support and engaging and having conversations with fans. Last year when he spoke to the fan on Twitter, and then in the summertime when he did it around the England game, he didn't have to do that, and wearing the laces is enough. But the fact that he actually reached out was amazing. I mean, how incredible to have somebody like that talk to you on Twitter. That's really cool. But also to show that message and make it super clear. I know Conor Coady he won a Football Ally of the Year award, but he made some fantastic statements around actually how heartbreaking he found the idea that people couldn't come out, and he really got really emotive about it. And I think I remember watching that and thinking, wow, you're not just doing this because you're told to do it. You're doing it because you really feel it. And I think it's not the action, it's the how and the what's behind it. And I was privileged to be on a few different, witness a few different conversations. And I know Conor had one with Ali Miller, who was a women's player on Wolves. Saw a couple of others. The Jurgen Klopp one with Michaela Moore from Liverpool. She's an out women's player, and what Jurgen was saying with learning from her and really doing the whole, when we talk about speak up, like he actually did it. He sat down with her and asked her questions and learned from her, and was like, whoa, I can do much more, and my eyes have been opened, and he was really public about that. So I think it's that genuineness that you see. But even beyond the big names, it's players that I remember when I came out. I had teammates who came up to me and were like, "Hey, how can I make this easier for you?" And literally that one line is enough, or was at the time enough to start the conversation, to say, "Actually, I'm struggling in this other area. Can you just I got your back on the pitch. I'm a goalkeeper. Can you get my back off the pitch in this way?" And it's those little, we talk a lot at Stonewall about the the big little things. So, a tweet, a conversation, a reach out. It's a massive theme in mental health talk as well, but just reach out and do it genuinely. And I think that's what we're seeing increasingly with the professional players. They didn't have to do that. They don't have to talk about this stuff, and they don't have to feel that emotive about it, but they do. And that's what's really, really great to see. And that's real pure support.
We spoke to Conor Coady recently as well at Goal. Our correspondent Emma Smith had an interview with Conor Coady, and I agree, what shone through was just a desperation to share the emotion. It was very visceral, the interview. It felt like there were no platitudes or tokenisms in there. It was really this kind of sensation that he really wanted to support the cause and help however he could.
Yeah.
So, Erin, where does Rainbow Laces go next? How do you evolve the campaign in the years to come?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we're constantly thinking about and checking in on, and I think we'll see where this year goes in terms of what conversations are led and what comes up. And a massive part of our work at Stonewall is to be led by communities and to check in with people. And we don't claim to know all the answers, and we don't come up with all the directions. We listen to people and we talk and we say, what's going on, what popped up from the conversations we had in Rainbow Laces 2021 that we need to take forward in our work throughout the year and then next year. So I think it's continuing to speak up. And when we say speak up, it's speaking to LGBTQ plus people. It's speaking for us when it's appropriate, but it's speaking and learning with, and then seeing what comes from there. I definitely think we need to keep the fight going for trans inclusion. We need to make sure that LGBTQ plus people of color are included. We need to do a lot more in the Paralympic spheres, and I do think we've only really scratched the surface of what the reality is in women's sport, or people that play in the women's sports sort of circles. So there's a lot more we could be doing, and we do it during the year, but in terms of Rainbow Laces, it's turning around and saying, well, what has come up, what are the issues, and where do we go from it, and then get more and more players involved every year and really take over.
Well, Erin, many congratulations for all the successes you've had so far. Best of luck for the future. Thank you very much for your time on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really enjoyable.
Can you let us know where and how people can find out more about Stonewall and Rainbow Laces?
Yep, absolutely. We have a Rainbow Laces hub on the Stonewall website. So just head over to stonewall.org.uk and click Rainbow Laces. Our Twitter feed at Stonewall UK is highlighting loads around not just what we're doing, but what the clubs are doing. And if you ever have any questions or thoughts or want to take things forward, send us an email at sport@stonewall.org.uk and a member of the team will get back to you.
Terrific. I mean, I would endorse that, particularly about the social channels. I think there's some terrific, informative, eye-opening and entertaining content on there. So I would encourage anyone to go and check that out. And if anyone would like to listen to more episodes on the business of football, please make sure you're following this podcast on your preferred podcast platform. If you liked this, the full episode will be available on footballco.com. And check out the show archives. Same. All the best.